Good evening, and welcome to part 4 of my suicide prevention series. I'm Kimberly Christian. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I live in the state of Texas, and I have been practicing social work as a psychotherapist for 16 years now. And this is coming from a huge, huge place of my heart and my passion, which is saving lives, as many lives as possible. I also very, very much care about saving souls. And the way I see it, they go hand in hand. When you are saving lives, you are saving souls. And when you are saving souls, obviously, you're saving lives. So, talking about mental health and faith together and showing the beauty in those two things is something that I am quite passionate about. And so, I encourage you to follow any of the other videos that I have posted or any of the other talks that I have. I have a new website that you can check out. That is KimberlyChristianLCSW.com. Lots of good resources there and growing. And I am just really excited to be with you tonight to talk about something that is so important that affects, although suicide itself doesn't necessarily impact 1 in 10 families directly, indirectly it does. So chances are in this lifetime, you are going to know someone who struggles to the point of death by suicide. But we want to change those numbers and that ratio. And so this is my attempt at being able to do that. So when you join the live session tonight, please let me know that you are here and feel free to comment if you have questions. We had some really good questions coming in last week, actually all 3 weeks. Hi, Electra. We had some really good questions coming in, and I want to meet you where you're at. So if there is something in particular that you are wanting to share from your own experience or you're wanting me to talk about, I am open to extend this another week or 2 if we need to. This is, as it stands right now, this is my part 4. This is my finale to talking about this topic. But truth be told, I talk about this all the time. This is just where the focus really is on how to prevent suicide. We've talked about things from the facts, the mental health facts around this. We have talked about the do's and the don'ts. We talked about an assessment last week by the acronym of SPRITE. And I really encourage you to not only go back yourself and watch the videos, send them to other people. That's how we change the world. That's how we change lives, is by one person at a time, getting this information in front of other people. And I know that it's hard. It is hard to get people to join a podcast like this. It is hard to get people to want to comment freely using their name sometimes. That's just part of mental health. It really, truly is. But I am trying my best to create a safe environment for you to learn and to share and to grow, and then to take that information and to share with other people. So again, I welcome you. If this is the first time that you are ever watching anything that I put on this channel, then let me please tell you that this channel is here to empower you, to encourage you, and to equip you to be able to take your mental health and faith to the next level. I want you to be able to think about both of those areas from a biblical place, and that is not easy to do. But that is always the angle that I am taking. Like I said, I am a therapist. I have been one for a long time. I have a lot of experience in treating patients that have really struggled with suicidality. I have taught groups for a very long time. I'm a faith-based clinical therapist, so I have a lot of training in that area as well. But I'm also just a human, and I have been impacted by death by suicide myself. And so I hope that comes through as well. The personal weaved with the clinical side to be able to give you some real practical take-home things. And at the same time, I just want to encourage you that I'm not in a position right now in this format to be able to give you any individualized care or suggestions or advice. This is from a very high-level conversation But I encourage you that if you are relating to anything that I'm talking about tonight, or you know someone else who is, I will mention this throughout my talk tonight. Please remember that the suicide prevention hotline is 988. And if you want, you can call, you can text, you can chat, you can look at the website. There's a lot of good resources there, including if you are experiencing suicidality and you just don't know how to convey that to get someone else's attention. There's actually some cards that you can look at on their website that give you some verbiage that just kind of help you put into words something that is often really, really difficult to put into words. But the number itself is 800-273-8255. 1-800-273-8255. There's so much to cover tonight, and I know that I'm probably not going to do all of it. It's just not going to be possible to get all of that into an hour. So remember that. Remember that I'm not going to cover everything important. That's why the chat is there, for you to make sure that if there's something I'm missing that you think is valuable, that you will share that. And also that you will look into these resources on your own. There's a lot of really good resources out there. We don't always remember them or take advantage of them, or kind of take out the sting of shame or embarrassment or whatever the feeling is, to be able to look into those things. But it matters. Tonight, we're going to talk about some of the best strategies for preventing suicide. I refer to those as techniques or coping skills, because there's so many different reasons that a person arrives at that place. I know a lot of people that have been affected by this want to know, what is it? What is the thing? There isn't one thing. We are very unique and complicated people, and our thoughts are also very complex and very complicated. And we know that our decisions are coming from our thoughts. So again, you'll hear me say this throughout the conversation tonight, but it is really important to make sure that your thought life is something you take very seriously. Just like you work really hard on your physical body by getting exercise and eating right and staying hydrated and taking supplements and, prescription medication and all of those things, because you care about your physical health. It is just as important to take care of your mental health. And part of doing that is making sure that you are working with a good cognitive therapist that is helping you to really look at the root of what the issues are, but also to know how to correct them. And it's very important, but it's a very difficult job, and it's going to require that you make changes. It's going to require that you look inward and all of those things that are just super uncomfortable for us to do. And knowing that is why I created an online program earlier this year. It's called The Christian Method. And although it is not something that I spend a great deal talking about suicide prevention in the program itself, it is addressed. And so if you like what you are hearing tonight and you're finding it helpful, just know that I am open to talk to you about that program at any time. It addresses everything from A to Z, but it absolutely will help you to correct wrong thinking that leads to unhealthy feelings and behaviors and the whole mind, body, spirit connection. So some of the things you're going to hear tonight, although I'm not going to be mentioning any names at all, everything is going to be held to the utmost confidentiality. I'm going to be telling you some experiences that I have had in dealing with patients that have really struggled with suicidality, and also those that have come to me as a result of losing someone to suicide. Because I think that when we're talking about the techniques that are the most important in prevention, one of those is knowing the other side of that. It is knowing what that experience is like for family members and friends and coworkers and all of the above and more. We talk about this a lot in mental health conversations and dealing with clinical depression, that when you're focused so much on your own life and on your deficiencies and things that aren't going the way that you want, one of the best ways, of course, it's not the only way, and it's not the best way, but one of the ways is to get outside of yourself so that you're not just thinking about your life and thinking about the difficulties and the struggles that you have, but you're also thinking about other people's experiences. You're realizing that you have compassion and empathy for what they're going through, and that you realize other people also have really, really hard things to navigate through. It's the same way here. Getting outside of yourself and your internal struggles to be able to see what a person that is having to walk through life without their loved one is like can be extremely sobering, extremely helpful. And fortunately, I've seen quite a few lives change as a result of that. So I will get to that. And I welcome anybody that joins us as I'm talking. If you have an experience that you're wanting other people to know about, feel free to do that, but you certainly don't have to. So some of the best strategies for preventing suicide, managing your mental health, just plain and simple. I know that's a very, very broad statement to make, but it really encompasses so much. Managing your mental health is going to mean, like I mentioned in some of the earlier videos, the people that I have researched after knowing that that they did die by suicide, some of the common things that I saw, one of the biggest actually, is that they were not engaged in a mental health community. Now, what does that mean? A mental health community can mean lots of things. One of those can mean that you are seeing a therapist, seeing a psychiatrist. Those are the most important relationships to have in that scenario. It can also mean that you have family and friends that are educated about your mental health. It can mean that you are consistent in taking psychotropic medications and supplements. It can also mean that you're a part of a community-based group. I've talked before about DBSA, Depression Bipolar Support Alliance. I have talked about NAMI, which is National Alliance on Mental Illness. Hi, Shannon. I'm glad that you're here tonight too. Welcome. Those are the two main ones that I know of that are just very focused on mental health, not from any particular point of view. The one that I know of that is coming at mental health and habits and hangups and things like that from a faith-based point of view is called Celebrate Recovery. And that is a really, really great group to be a part of as well. And by the way, any of those groups that I'm mentioning, they don't take away from the therapy that you are already engaging in. Because remember, that's first and foremost. If you are managing your mental health, family and friends are important. Your faith community is super important. Nothing takes the place of having a therapist, having a psychiatrist in your corner that will do a clinical evaluation every time that they meet with you. Sometimes you don't even realize that they're doing that. You guys are just talking and you're catching up on things that have happened, but they are assessing you. They are making sure that they have covered all the things that they need to, that you are safe, that you are attending to your needs all across the board, that you're functioning at a high level, all of those things. So managing your mental health encompasses a lot of things. And that also includes things like getting daily activity. It includes, like I mentioned before, making sure your diet is good and healthy, that you are trying to stay away from caffeinated beverages, sugary beverages, but trying to get as much water in you as you possibly can. It has huge, huge benefits. But that's not it as well. It's things like sleep hygiene. It's things like self-care, making sure that you're getting plenty of time, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, or you're a hybrid of both. You're going to need to make sure that you're getting time for yourself. Now, I will tell you that is something I struggle with. Anybody who knows me personally knows that really is a struggle for me to do. But I can really see the struggle start to creep in when I am making my life completely about other people and I'm forgetting about the things that I need to be doing just for me. And so I am telling you from experience, as a therapist and as a human, these things seem like they are at times arbitrary. They seem like they're just completely normal. Like, well, yeah, of course, of course I'm going to do that. But that's what I'm telling you. As the therapist, people are not doing those things. And that's when they're noticing that struggle is really just progressively creeping in. So checking in with yourself, you're going to hear me say that a lot because there's so many benefits to it. But here's one of the things that comes out of that for you. You get really, really good at knowing what helps, what hurts, basically what it takes for you to function at the level that your job requires, that your life requires. That's something nobody else knows like you do. And so checking in with yourself and asking questions about how am I doing? What am I doing? Am I doing all of those things that I just mentioned? If I have fallen off of any of those, what is it going to take to get me back on those things? Do I have a need of something that I'm, kind of ignoring out of fear or out of another type of anxiety? We do things like that. We avoid medical things because of that. We avoid tough conversations. We avoid things like church because we, are concerned about getting back into that community if it's been a while. There's just so many things that go on with that. And you're probably thinking of some of those right now that really apply to you. But just think about it as it's a whole puzzle piece. It's a whole picture of what it takes for you to manage your mental health. And I've said this before in other videos, and it might sound a little bit different every time that we talk about it. But here's the encouragement I want to give you. It's going to feel like a full-time job. It is going to feel like you are always having to do something. You're always having to attend to something. You've always got 10, 15 things on your list that you've got to pay attention to and make time for. That is absolutely true. I can't dispute that, and I won't. But are you worth that? Is your life worth that? Pretty much most days you're going to say yes. Sometimes if you're someone who really struggles with some of these serious illnesses that we're talking about here, you're going to say, I don't think that all the time. I understand that. But most of the time, especially in your most rational thinking, you're going to say, yeah, I do. I do. Because if God created all of us, and I believe that, then I'm not any different than anybody else. So if I'm encouraging them to meet their basic needs, if I'm encouraging them to set healthy boundaries, if I'm encouraging them to do all of these things, I have got to look at myself and say, it's the exact same for me. I'm worthy of that. And I'm worth that, even more importantly. So if you have any other suggestions, those of you that are here with me right now, is there anything that I'm not mentioning that you know from your own experience that's really, really important? As I'm thinking about that, I'm going to move on to some other things, some other stories, but I will always come back if I see you commenting on something. So, as I said, I'm going to tell a story from the very beginning of my career as a social worker. My very first job that I took as a licensed social worker was in an inpatient setting at a hospital here in Texas. And I never expected to do mental health. Never in a million years did I ever think I would do mental health. I did not have any experience doing that. I had not taken any classes in my graduate program for mental health specific, but yet that's where God had me. That's the job that was offered to me, and I knew I had to take whatever was offered. So I did. I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified because just like you hear in different shows and movies, the truth is that on an inpatient unit, because of the gravity of what they are dealing with, it's a locked unit. And so that's the same for every patient as it is for every employee. You walk into the floor and it locks behind you. And it's not like that really anywhere else, or at least it certainly wasn't, back in the, back 16 years ago. Excuse me. So that was something to get used to. But here's the really big piece. This is when I realized that I had not just compassion for people struggling in this area because it had occurred in my own family, I realized I had such a passion for people that were struggling with suicidality. I just didn't understand it. But God had this divine appointment just waiting for me when I taught my very first group therapy class. It was just a simple process group on the unit where patients were supposed to come. They didn't want to come, but they got, credit for being at any class that was offered. And I was just supposed to be checking in with them and asking questions. Basically, tell me your story. What brought you to this unit? What struggles have you had? Just basic check-in things. And I was hearing people come from this place of just complete despair, whether it was their job that stressed them out to the point of thinking that they just couldn't cope anymore, or if it was a relationship, or there was a lot of loss that led people to that place. They had recently lost someone in their lives, and they didn't know any other way to get through it. And I realized my heart for people just collided with one of the biggest tragedies that a person could ever experience. And my heart was just wide. It just opened wide that day. Remember, I not only thought I could not do mental health as a discipline, I also did not think I could lead groups. No one had ever told me that I would be good at that. I had no experience doing that. And I begged is the right word, begged my coworkers to take over any groups for me. And it got to the point where they just couldn't anymore. We made all the trades we could. It just is at the place where I had to just do it. And I loved it. I'm here today because I loved it so much. People were dealing with addiction. People were dealing with some really, really serious things. And it didn't matter if I was equipped to be able to deal with all of the many things that had landed them in a place like that. I had the concern. I had the care. I could communicate to them that they mattered, and that even if I didn't know the answer for how they were going to get through whatever that was, early on, I realized I had the ability, because of my faith, and this is the same for you, to infuse hope into people. And this is long before I ever thought about being a psychotherapist in private practice. This was just, kind of cutting my teeth on this whole thing. But I realized that people that are at that place in life, they need a good listener. They need someone who's going to take them seriously. They need someone who is not going to shame them by saying, oh, well, you have it so good. Sounds like you've got a great life. It sounds like you've got all these people that love you so much. What's the problem? They didn't need that. They needed someone that was going to really listen to how they were seeing things. And some of them were in some really tough places, not just tough situations, but they were having manic symptoms. They weren't seeing things from a reality-centered place. But again, my job or at least the way I was seeing my job, was not only to be a discharge planner and to help them really get prepared for the day that they were going to be released and where they were going to go, and medications and safety plans and all of those wonderful things. I was supposed to be kind of their friend while they were there for 3 to 5 days. And there was times that I had to kind of pry myself away. I had a husband to get to at that time in my life. I didn't have any children yet, but I had a husband to get to. And I was excited about doing that, but I just knew these people need love. They need somebody to tell them that hope is possible. And so although I could not, use my faith in any way, and I couldn't do any of the things that you see me doing now, I realized people were really responsive to that. And so that's what my encouragement and my sharing with you tonight is to remember, if you are a family member, if you are a friend, and you're wondering, what am I supposed to do? I've heard people talk about take them seriously every single time, whether you think they're serious about it or not. Yes, that's true. But also take their problems seriously, because to them, it really is a problem. Even if you're totally seeing the way through it and you realize that's not that big of a deal. It's not big enough for you to, to think about ending your life. Remember that in that moment, they are seeing it that way. And so validating that is going to help build credibility for you in their eyes. And so when you start making suggestions about getting help and you start making suggestions about whatever the change is that needs to take place, maybe it's staying in the hospital a little bit longer, they're going to hear it a little bit better that time. So that's kind of just an overview. I know there's many more things to mention, but that is kind of the beginning of my love for people that are really struggling with suicidality. And it has only grown as the years have gone on. And we've tried many, many things when I know that someone is really in that dark place. What they don't know is that I pray for them when I'm not with them. It's impossible for me to come home and to not think about the patients that I have been treating during the time that I was in person with them. But even now, I see people, virtually in my practice, and I'm praying for my patients. I'm thinking about them when we're not meeting. I'm thinking about the fact that they have appointments coming up and they have conversations that they're going to have with their loved ones. Those things matter to me. Something that I think that I'm doing that God has impressed on me, and it's working really well, and you don't even have to be a therapist to do this, is ask the Lord before you ever meet with someone that's in a difficult place. Ask him to help you see them the way he does. I know that sounds, again, it sounds cliche and it sounds really simple. It has been a total game changer for me. As someone who has the training and has the knowledge and has the theories and all these skills to back this up, I'm also a human being, very, very much so. And there are times that I'm tired. And there are times that I'm running on my own energy. I'm not running on the Holy Spirit fumes. But when I am, that's when I'm at my best. And that's when you can do the exact same thing. So if you have someone that you live with, someone that you know you're going to be conversing with, and you know that they are really struggling, just say a simple prayer. Lord, help me to see this person and to communicate to them exactly what you want. Help me to see them the way that you do and to communicate to them exactly what you want them to hear from me, because there's nobody like him. I mean, think about this right now. Is there a time in your life that you have been in a really, really bad place for whatever the reason is, and you haven't gone to him in some way? Maybe you were going to him because you didn't know what to do and you were praying. Maybe you went to him because you just were at such a loss. You just hit your knees. You had your face in your hands and you were just crying out to the Lord, because he's the ultimate comforter. He is. And he doesn't always give us what we're asking for. And everyone who's being honest knows that. But there's no one who comforts us like he does. So if we are to be his hands and his feet, and for people to experience him through us, then we have to tap into that. We have to ask him, God, I do not know what the right thing is to say. I'm dealing with my own thoughts, my own fears about helping this person, but he always knows. He knows exactly what they need to hear that's going to turn things around. And that has been some of the experiences that I have had when people have been really in a very, very bad place mentally. They have been in a very distorted, irrational place. I know that I can reflect on those times. And it was when I asked the Lord to speak through me and to communicate love and concern and compassion and also hope and also authority, that I would know what to do. That's when I would see things turn around for people. It does not happen overnight. And it does take some very specific things that I have mentioned in previous videos. One of those being, do not leave that person alone. Do not leave that person without a plan. That's something that was drilled into my mind in graduate school. Like I said, I didn't even take mental health classes, but developing a treatment plan, helping that person to see, this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to address this. This is how we're going to follow up on these things. That is what creates hope and creates safety for someone who probably feels like it's just been completely ripped away from them. So, okay, so now we're going to talk about some of the few stories that I know where someone has experienced a loss in their friend group or coworkers or their family. And I'm going to speak on behalf of them, because here's what they would want you to know. They would want you to know that there is no problem that they cannot help you to work through. They want you to know that there is, and this is going to sound like generalizations, because I know you might be thinking, well, you don't know my person's story, or you don't know. You're right. I don't know your person's story. I don't know your family dynamic. There's a ton of things I don't know, but this is what I'm reporting based on what I have heard over the years. They want you to know that there's nothing that they're going to leave you over. There's nothing that they're going to abandon you and say, this is the end. This is the end of the road. And, we've had a good run, but there's nothing more we can do here. Now, can that happen in marital relationships? Yes, I absolutely know that. There are situations and circumstances that you can find yourself in where whatever side you're on, that relationship may never look the same once you've shared whatever you're going to share. There's truth to that, and there's nothing I can do that's going to take that away. But even at that, I'm going to speak hope into that situation and tell you, you still have friends. You probably still have family members. You might have kids. You have other people that you need to also be thinking about that are not going to have the same reaction that your spouse would when they're aware of whatever predicament that you're finding yourself in. Because I know that is one of the delicate reasons and situations that people find themselves in that cause them to be at a place where suicide seems like the only option. I can't speak to all the reasons. Remember, they're unique, as unique as every single person is. But I'm going to speak to the things that I know from experience. Sometimes, and this is a tough place for therapists to be, but thankfully this is the place that we're really trained to be. Sometimes a person will tell us that they don't have any support. They don't have anybody left. I honestly can't think of a time that actually was true. Now, in that moment, what the person was telling me, it had truth to it. They had damaged enough relationships with their parents, with their family, with those important people, where there really didn't seem to be anybody left. But here's the difference. They had not cut everybody off. Or maybe a different way to say that is, not everybody left. See, that's one of our distortions. We overgeneralize. We might see that our parents or our spouse, some of those primary people are so upset with something that we've done or haven't done that they are no longer showing support. Maybe we are, caught in some sort of addiction and we're not willing to get into a place of recovery, to go through the treatment. Those people are genuinely upset, and they have reason to be. But they're not everybody. And sometimes what it requires to win those other people back over into our lives is to reach out to everybody else. So my hope, my request, my suggestion to you is, even if it seems as though everybody in your life is not a fan, they're frustrated with you, you have burned some bridges, they don't think that you're following through on the things that you're supposed to be following through. And some of that may be absolutely true. You've got to be willing, when someone like myself tries to help you to look at support outside of that, you've got to be willing to do that. You see, pride gets in the way of a lot of things. So many things that we can't even begin to scratch the surface tonight. But yet, here's one of the ways. I'm saying this from years of experiencing this out and having so much frustration around it, but realizing it's where I had to be sometimes the most assertive. Everybody has somebody. Everybody has somebody. And if you don't have somebody you can think of, then you've got to be open to new people. You've got to be open to new support. If you're someone who in the past, maybe you were a part of a church community but you've really pulled away from that, but now you're finding that you are in a tough spot and you need people. If someone like me is encouraging you to get back into that, or to be open to a local agency that's faith-based, be open to it. There are so many people that are happy to help, that are willing to meet you, to meet any need that you have. But see, this is why I said earlier that your thinking has got to be a top priority. It just does. It is the nucleus, it is the hub of everything that happens to us, sometimes around us. It's how we think about it. And like I said, many times I catch people in overgeneralizing, thinking that there's no one, that everyone is left. Everybody hates me. Everybody's disappointed in me. And that leads to a lot of negative, self-deprecating and suicidal thought. And then eventually actions. If we can't dispute that, it becomes action-based. So I hope that this is making sense. Comment. Those few of you that are here right now, let me know if this is making sense, if you're following me, if you have something that you want to add to that while I hydrate. But I'm going to tell you this. Some of the patients that I have treated, okay, Electra, thank you for saying that. I'm glad. Some of the patients that I have treated that have had some of the biggest struggles in this area have had the biggest change from these few things. One of those being, as much as they wanted to step out of therapy because it was just getting to be a lot. It was getting to be taxing on them emotionally, time-wise, financially, whatever the case may be. If they didn't give up on therapy, maybe they changed therapist, but if they didn't give up on therapy, if they stuck with the skills and they didn't let themselves get overwhelmed, but they just kept at it. And here's another one. And they allowed themselves to be in situations and experiences where God had a divine appointment for them, and they didn't even realize it. I've seen this happen many times, where they're a part of a group, or they're a part of, whether that's a therapeutic group or it's a community-based group, and they end up meeting somebody that is dealing with the very thing that they are. All of a sudden, now they're seeing it from a different perspective, and their eyes are opened, and they're realizing, I had no idea. I had no idea that this is what it would look like for someone in my family, in my friendships, or at my job, if I were to go through with this. You see, suicidality is always something that's temporary. In the moment, it does not seem that way to people. And I know that. I hear that. I've heard that a lot. But it truly is temporary. It just is really powerful. It's really intense. And so I go back to those few things that I said. If the person is staying in therapy, if they are keeping up with their skills, learning new skills, trying those things out, no matter how hard it is in the moment. See, the easy thing to do is to just follow the feeling. If you feel like you don't want to, go forward anymore, you feel like you can't face that conversation, you can't face whatever it is, the easier thing to do is to say, I give up. I don't want to do this anymore. I promise you, it is so much harder to do the work, to ask for help, to follow through in the skills that it takes. But what it builds in you, the confidence that it builds in you for the next time that you're dealing with something difficult, it's invaluable. It is totally and utterly invaluable when you realize that you have the ability to get yourself through that difficult time. Do you lean on other people? Yeah, you probably always will. Because if you're at the place where you're struggling with suicidality, chances are you have a therapist, you have a psychiatrist, you're engaged in mental health as a discipline in your life. And you might always need that. It takes a little bit of radical acceptance to see that you might always need to have those things in your life. Maybe not as intensely as always, but it's going to be an ever-present, it's going to hold an ever-present position in your life. And that's okay, because it is a lot of work. But we are complicated people. We have complicated lives. We have huge responsibilities. We are always changing. We have new symptoms that come on as we get older, right? That, to me, really points to, well, then I'm going to need a lot of support. I'm going to need to sharpen my skills. I can't use the same things that I've always used my whole life, because now I'm in a new place. I'm dealing with new challenges. I have new thoughts. I have new pains, new diagnoses, whatever that is. I ask my patients often to keep a list, I ask them to keep a lot of lists, if you want me to be honest with you. But one of those lists is, what are the things that work for you? What are the skills that are the most helpful? Because in your irrational thinking and your distorted thinking, it's not going to come natural to you to know what that thing to do is. It's going to come naturally to you to lean on the old thing, but it's not going to be right in front of your face that here's what helps you. So write it down. Don't assume that you're going to know that. In fact, assume that you're not. The other thing is to make a list of your support. And this is something that both parties can do. I've talked about this to support members in other videos that I've done, but I'm talking to you now, the person who is struggling or in the past has struggled with suicidality. Make a list of the people that you need to contact. We refer to that as a safety plan or a crisis plan. They kind of have different functions, but either way, it does the thinking for you, so that when you're in a tough spot and your thinking is just, it's intrusive. It is very intrusive, that you have something right in front of your mirror, right in front of your laptop, wherever you're spending time, and you have it staring at you, reminding you that there are people that care, that there are people that it matters to, that there are people that would drop whatever they're doing if they knew that you were in the kind of place that you're in. But you know what that infers is that you have to tell them. You cannot just say, well, I'm doing okay. See, a lot of patients that struggle with mental health issues across the board, they are really good at minimizing. Sometimes they know it and sometimes they don't. But they're really good at minimizing what they're experiencing. And so you might ask them, how are you doing? And they just say, oh, I'm fine. Think about it like just the teenage response. I have one at home. And I know that it takes a lot more questioning for me to get the full truth from him than just saying, how was your day? Or how are you? I have to ask pointed questions, open-ended questions. And that's what I want you to think about when you are asking someone that you're concerned about. I have done a video on how to check in with your loved ones that goes into a lot more detail than I'm going to do tonight. But I have a whole check-in system that is really hard to run from. You're asking people pointed questions about how they are doing, how they are feeling, and then you have follow-up questions that you are asking based on their answer. So that's another way. That's another way to be able to help prevent this, is by having open communication, making sure that if you have someone that you're concerned about, you're asking them often. You're certainly not being intrusive into their life, but you are asking them and letting them know messages like, there's nothing that you can't tell me. There's nothing that we cannot figure out together. You're not going to scare me by telling me the truth. One of my common things that I will say to people is, there's nothing that we are not going to be able to work through together. I'm not going to, even if it's a patient that I cannot treat, but I know that they're not doing well, I'll let them know I'm going to stick with you until I get you into the hands of somebody else. Whether that means they're going inpatient or I'm referring them to another therapist, they need to know, because remember, at that time, their brain is filled with messages that are, for the most part, totally inaccurate. Totally inaccurate. They're thinking that no one understands them. No one cares about what they're going through. No one is going to know what to do. It's just complete overwhelm. It's complete catastrophe, stress, anxiety, shame. Remember, one of the takeaways from this series that I want everybody who watches to remember forever is that shame is always a part of suicidality. It doesn't always lead to it, but every time a person is suicidal, every time I've heard a story where there was a death by suicide, shame was involved. They were thinking how horrible they were about something that they've done because it's discovered later, something that they were a part of or something they did or didn't do. Their brain is just filled with thoughts of how they are making life harder on other people by their physical symptoms, by their mental symptoms, by financial situations, whatever it is. But it's not true. It's just not true. It's difficult. It's going to take a lot of effort to work through that situation. But again, I've treated both sides of this. And I can tell you that in the brain of someone who is experiencing suicidality, they're not being selfish. They are not being selfish. They really are thinking and believing that they are, in essence, making things better for people around them. So we have to really correct that thinking that they're being completely selfish. Here's the other side to that. I've treated people that have lost loved ones to suicide, and most of them will go through a stage where they have a lot of anger because they feel like that was so selfish of them to only think of themselves and to not think of, them, of the loved one, of the family, of the friends, of the community, all of those things. That is 100% understandable because I know that it does feel that way. But I'm trying to offer both sides of the coin to the best of my ability, that when we have conversations where we are checking in with each other, where we are being honest, where we are talking about our struggles, we are ultimately lessening this whole conversation. We are lessening the fact that it's I think it's the number 2 or number 3 reason for casualties. I know it's in the top 5. I want to say it's the number 2 or number 3 in America. It's that big of a deal. So I'm just going to say something really bold. I want to see this video completely light up with people watching it. Nothing to do with me. I don't care about that. I want this video to get more plays than anything I've done, because I want people to take this so seriously that they say, you have to see this. You have to hear this. This is free information. And there are so many people that talk about the fact that mental health care is so hard to come by, that it's so expensive, that it's so difficult, that it's hard to find the right fit. It's hard to make time for. Those things are absolutely true also. I know that. But I'm giving you no excuses here. I am telling you things from an insider's point of view, things that are going to help, things that are going to reduce the rate at which suicides happen. I'm telling you what good communication looks like. I'm telling you the things not to say. I'm trying to create a culture, one person at a time, where we are no longer dealing with shame, because it is at the root every single time. Every single time. I haven't been challenged yet. And I know that you're thinking, well, when a person dies by suicide, we don't always know. You're absolutely right. We do not always know that. But yet things have a way of becoming uncovered. So if they were covered up, eventually certain things become uncovered. And other times it's when I've treated the family member, and over time, they start to realize and kind of piece things together and realize this is probably what they were experiencing. This is what they were thinking. These are the things that they were talking about, right before their death. These are the struggles that they were having that they just could not see another way through. So don't tell me that shame is not a part of it. It always is. It always is. So how can we reduce that? We that are watching this, that are taking this message seriously, are realizing that we need to have a good, healthy relationship with all of our feelings, and shame is one of them. And when I say healthy relationship, in this case, it means that we have one that is unaccepting. We do not welcome it and we do not accept it. When shame comes knocking at our door, causing us to think that we are awful people, that we cannot be helped, that we are in over our head, all of those things, that we've done things that just cannot be revoked, we need to have automatic thinking that just automatically snaps into place and says, that is not true. Everything can be fixed. Everything can be worked through. Everything can find hope. And here's why we know that. Because death by suicide is never God's will. And that's all I can say about that. I can't speak to anything about how God sees that, how he deals with that, what happens when someone dies by suicide. I'm not the judge. I have no idea. But I do know that that is never his plan for us. That is a very unnatural way for us to die. And he has no part in that, right? He is the orchestrator and the creator and the perfecter of our whole lives. And he has plans for us every single day that we're here. So I do know that to be the truth, an absolute truth. So I can't believe that we're already running so close to time. This has been a very, very fast hour. But here's what I want to say. I know you guys have been quiet, those of you that have been here, and I understand. I put myself in your place and I think, what in the world would I say? I don't know. I only know because I'm on the other side of this. If I were a participator in this, it would be awfully hard for me to know what to say, but that's okay. I just hope you're taking something away. I hope it's causing you to either really think about your relationship with shame, your relationship with your own thoughts, that if you have something nagging at you, causing you to think, my thoughts are really the problem. I need to do something about it. Don't let another day pass. Find a resource, find a way to work on your thoughts, because I can't stress that enough. They are at the root of every problem internal, and most of the problems external are coming from our own thoughts and the way that we are perceiving them. And there is hope for that. The loved ones that I have treated that have lost children, their own children to suicide, loved ones, coworkers, I can tell you this, they're never the same people. They're never the same people. And that is something that they would want you to know. Do they get better? Yes. With treatment, with a lot of care, with a lot of concern, with a lot of compassion, and with our Lord, they get better. They can face days that seemed like impossible to go on when it first happened. They get up. They take care of their own needs. They set goals. They continue to have relationships. They continue to have good days. They actually find that joy is possible again. Those things do happen. And I'm also here to tell you that they're never the same person. That time that they lost that loved one marks something in their lives. It's like the before and after, and they talk about it that way. There's very few things in this life that we can say mark like, AD and BC in a person's life. But suicide is like that, because it's a loss you never fully understand. You never get over. You never get over the loss of anybody. And yet when a person dies by suicide, you have so much unresolved pain and questions that naturally, aren't there a lot of times when death happens in another way, maybe something that you had time to spend with your loved one before they passed, you had time to have these conversations. When death happens by suicide, a lot of those moments are taken. There aren't those conversations where you know where that person stands in their faith. So here's what I'm going to say. I did a video a couple months ago about not having any regrets. Oddly enough, it probably has more people that have watched that than anything else I've done. And I think I'm understanding a little bit more why. And I'm going to utilize that tonight in this video. Make sure that you're living with no regrets. Because if you feel compelled to tell someone what they mean to you, if you feel compelled to tell someone that you're praying for them, to pray with them, to let them know a message that God has on your heart, if you feel compelled to buy them a Bible or buy them a devotional or invite them to church, do you know that the statistics show it's a really wild number? It's like 60 to 80% of people, if they are actually invited to church, will go. Now, does church save you? No. But what they can hear inside of a good Bible-believing church can save them. There have been people that have gone to church or been around other believers that they've gone to concerts. I've heard that story before too. They've had that thought in their mind that today is the day. I already have this plan developed. I can't do this anymore. This is what I'm planning to do. And then something interrupts it. And it's usually God. Why don't we be that for people? Why don't we be so in tune with the Holy Spirit in us that when He prompts us to say something, to hug someone, to tell a stranger that they matter, that they are seen, that their job matters, when the whole world looks at them in a different way because of what they do, let's be the people that say, I see you. God loves you. Jesus died for you. Let's be people that do that, because you may never know what you interrupted by saying the things that you say, doing the things that you do. Something that seems like such a small, simple act can be exactly what the Holy Spirit is delivering through your physical body to another one of His children. We may not hear any of those stories until we are in His presence ourselves. But I can tell you that it happens. I have had patients that have told me. I have read stories where people watched a show or they heard something at just the right time. They heard a song on the radio at just the right time. And God showed them. He spoke to them in a way that only they would understand. And that's something that God is great at. So what can we offer in that situation? To be open. To be open to ask questions, to realize that we are not planting a seed in a person's mind if we ask them, are you having thoughts to hurt yourself? One of the things, that is a great question to ask, but one of the things I like to ask people is, are you having thoughts that aren't yours? Are you having thoughts that you do not think like that, but they're happening? You can tell me. Because we have to take the shame, we have to take the sting out of what they're experiencing. Because once a person starts opening up and they start talking about what it is that's going on in their mind, all of a sudden the shame is being let out and exposed for what it is, and hope is creeping in. It's the same reason why a person can have a therapy session on their calendar and they haven't even gone to it yet and they already feel better. Because they just know that they've taken a step in the right direction. I know that we cannot prevent everything. And I know some people are going to be watching this and they're going to be wishing that they knew some of this before in their own lives. I know that too. I have family members that know that too. We're responsible for today. We're responsible for what we know today. So go forward. Tell people the things that are on your heart. Tell yourself the things that are on your heart. And if you are struggling, I've got this great book I can recommend to you, and it's called The Holy Bible. It has 66 beautiful books that are full of God's heart for you. That if you really spend time looking at it and going to the back, the concordance, and looking up certain passages of, where do I find the word hope? Where do I find the word love? Where do I find the phrase fear not? Where do I find, forgiveness? Where do I find the words heaven? And any of those things, you're going to see that he will totally meet you there. And his message is so intimate for you that you are going to literally feel like you are his only child. It's amazing that he can do that, but he does. And some of you know exactly what I mean. You've had a moment in your own life where his communication with you, his impression upon you was so personal that it really felt like you were the only person that mattered to him. Just because it seems like it's impossible doesn't mean that it is. So I'm going to wrap this up by saying that you matter. I have this bumper sticker on the back of our van that I drive, and I love it. And I always get people that give me comments on this, and it says, Jesus died because all lives matter. And it's true. Every single, truer words have not been spoken, right? He died because every single life matters. And so whether you're outgoing or you're an extrovert or you're not, that's okay. We're all different. Find a way. Use your skill set to let people know. Maybe sharing this video is your way of doing that. And you say, I agree with a lot of what she said. However you want to do that, just be one of those people that lives without regrets, that you say the positive, you keep in the things that aren't so positive, and that you let God use you. He is in the business of changing lives, and saving souls. And he does that through us so often. It is a privilege, it's an honor, and it's a very big responsibility. But you don't have to be a therapist to be able to do that. We can't be everywhere. We can't treat everybody. And I know that I'm not even the right fit for everybody. But you know your family. You know your friends. You know your coworkers. Get them the help that they need if they're struggling. Make sure that they know there is always hope. There is always help. And no matter how messed up this world becomes, there are always going to be people in professional settings like myself that will know what to do. So go back and watch these other videos, share them with other people. Know that you are created in the image of a perfect and holy God, and he did not make any mistakes with you. He looks at you, and on the physical, he absolutely says, I'm meant to do that. You are perfect. You don't disappoint me at all. On the inside, not so much. He does want to change those things. He does want us to keep working at being the best version. But hear this, he loves you. He loves you no matter what. He loves you so much that he was willing to send his son to live a life that we could not live and to die a death that we honestly deserved. That's our God. I thank you for being here for this last month. I look forward to doing this again with you. I'll do this every single week with different topics covering mental health and faith. And I thank you for your attendance tonight, and I hope you have a really blessed week. I'll see you next time.